Hello everyone! Today we are going to be doing a simple shooter AI for our enemy that we had already hooked up. If you haven't already, I'd suggest watching my previous two AI tutorials because we're going to be extending that heavily. We already have a enemy AI that comes up to the player and attacks them with melee. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to take this and we're going to basically extend it and make a shooter out of it. So first off, what we're probably going to want to do is this AI we have right here is to walk up to the player, obviously. And what we're going to want is we want to make it so our attack radius is much larger, so we can shoot the player instead of melee. So what we want, we're going to go ahead and edit our attack radius trigger zone that we have in our enemy AI microchip, and we're going to go ahead and set this up to something that seems like a decent shooting range. So I think this distance that the player's at right now is pretty good. So let's do about 15 meters, I guess. That sounds pretty good to me. So now they should technically try to attack the player, but we're not doing that. And the reason why this animation is kind of bugging out is because I moved the arms down, and because we're going to be doing shooting instead of melee. So let's see here. One thing that I'm noticing is kind of bug is we're not actually looking at the player. Yeah, we're totally not looking anywhere near the player. So, I'm not sure what is causing that. I could have sworn we set that up properly last time. And we're just turning around for some reason. Let's see. Go forwards, walk backwards. Okay. So we're gonna make it so when we are in our attack radius, we're gonna look at the player. So go ahead and make a new keyframe. And in this keyframe, we're gonna go ahead and open up the puppet settings. And we're going to do the turn towards and the look at settings. We're going to turn that on. Go ahead and beef up the radius, probably about 15-20 meters. Doesn't really matter as long as it's in the range. Alright. Still spinning, huh? Let's see why. Oh, because we don't have that turned on yet. There it is. Alright. Yeah, you need to plug the attack radius trigger zone into this keyframe here. And I'm going to go ahead and name it. And this is going to be look at. Look at player. And now we want to bring in a gun. And this is just technically for visuals at this moment. So we can either use the gun that I've published that has like fixed groups and everything, or you could end up using just any other gun. So I'm going to just do my low poly gun because it has a lot less detail and it's going to be really simple for us to set up. We don't have to animate anything. This is just for looks to actually shoot. So we're going to go ahead and bring this out, and we need to set up a aiming system because technically, even though the puppet is going to be looking at the player, this gun isn't going to be aiming because the aim stance that we're going to give this puppet isn't actually going to be there for function. It's going to be for looks. Of course, if you want to deck it all up duck it all out, and you can make all the kinds of animations you want on this guy. You can follow any of the animation tutorials I did for first-person shooter and apply it to this puppet. But in here we just want to get the function going. So we're going to actually use something from my first-person tutorial, and that is the aim, like little cube that we had to actually get the precise aim going for where your cursor is. Or not cursor, but that I can't remember the name of it. The crosshair, yeah, to actually shoot where your crosshair is. So we're gonna go ahead and do something similar to that. So we want this, get this cube and go ahead and stamp it instead of smearing. And we're gonna set the properties of this cube, the physical properties, to not be collidable and not visible either. And we are going to want to place down a tag, I think. Actually, I think we can... No, I actually tried it a while back. I've tried just grouping it, and this guy ends up floating away. So we do need a tag and probably a teleporter. I do want to test for compatibility, though, to see if the gun tip will teleport away. And if that happens, then we're going to have to come up with a little bit of a different system. It's not that big of a deal. It just could be a little bit inaccurate if we have this guy moving. So we're going to go ahead and name this tag gun tip. Actually, let me get my first person puppet in here. And I want to see if that teleporter will only teleport to the closest tag. I'm not sure if I actually have it saved as an object. Well, I do have this one saved as an object. But this is like an actual room. So, let's see here. Do you not have the cube? I know you have the cube. Where is the cube? There's the cube. Okay, well you are teleporting where I want you to, but are you teleporting there because the tag name is the same, or... Barrel tip. Okay, so we named it barrel tip. So I'm gonna go ahead and name this one over here barrel tip. And I'm just doing this because you probably want shooter AI in your first person game, don't you? That's how you probably want it, right? Okay. So I'm just making sure that this all works together. Nope. Open that microchip. Yeah, okay. So I believe teleporters, the way they're going to work is that they're going to want to teleport to whatever one is closest. So as long as you don't get them too close to each other, this should be fine. Otherwise, you're going to want to use a mover and use the scene space transform output of this tag. But movers introduce lag, so it wouldn't look as good as you'd want it to. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get out a microchip, and we're going to go ahead and surface snap and scale it down to our cube here. And then we're going to go ahead and open that up. We're going to get a teleporter out. And this teleporter is going to be barrel tip. And then you can see it teleports to the tip of our gun. And we only want this to be doing match target position. The teleporter, that is. And now we're going to get a node. And this is going to be our target position. And I'm not sure if I did this in the previous video or not, but I think I might have accidentally saved this. But if you haven't done this already, go ahead and get a tag out and put it on your player. You're going to want to name it player. And then you're going to want to open the properties of this player tag, get a splitter, and then plug the scene space transform output of the tag into the splitter input. And then once you have that, you want to place a wireless transmitter in your sensors and input section. And go ahead and name this player position. And then plug the translation output of your splitter into your player position wireless transmitter. And once you have all that set up, we should be able to do this. Yes, we did have... Okay. Yeah, we did have this set up already. So we did do that. So go ahead and going to take the output of the signal manipulator that we have the player position wireless receiver hooked up into in our enemy AI section. I'm going to take the signal of that and we're going to plug that into our target position node in our microchip here. And then we want to get a look at rotator. And we're going to go ahead and make this as strong as possible, as fast as possible. So go ahead and up the rotation speed a lot, increase the rotation strength and dampening all the way to 100%. And then we're going to go ahead and plug in the target position node into our target position input on the third page of the properties panel of our look at rotator. And once you have that done, we are going to get an emitter, and we are probably going to put this, we're going to put this down on this microchip, and we need a bullet. So I'd either suggest importing the bullet from our FPS that we made, or you can make one, but I'm going to make one from scratch, not the model here. I'm just going to take the gun that I've published, the AK-47 puppet scale clean groups, and I'm going to go ahead and take the bullet from here, the model that is. And then I'm going to just delete the model of the gun. And now we want to modify some of the logic on here if you use the imported one. Or we're going to just go ahead and put down a new microchip and stamp it on there with surface snap. Go ahead and make it nice and small. Then we're going to open up this microchip. And we want to damage the player. So we're going to get a health modifier in our movers and output section. And depending on how difficult you want the game to be, that's what we're going to set the modification amount in the properties panel of the health modifier. I want it to be about negative... Let's do -5. That seems like a good amount for a gun, or at least an FPS. And we're going to make it per hit on impact. And then we're going to go over the labels section. And we're going to go ahead and do any selected. And we only want to do friends and or targets. So friends and targets. So that means we're going to be doing damage to the player, I believe they're labeled as friend, or target. And if you want this to be like I guess, not multiplayer friendly, but kind of multiplayer friendly. I don't know. If you want like friendly AI, you could do all selected. And basically this means the target needs to have friend and target in order to actually be taking damage instead of just one of them. And let me check. Yep, our player does have friend and target. So this would basically mean you don't have friendly fire. It is a bit limited though because you only have friend and foe. That means there's 2 teams. Instead of like maybe 3 or 4 teams, but hey, it works. And once you have that health modifier all set up, we're gonna get down a impact sensor, and our sensor's an input, and it looks like a ball with an arrow pointing upwards after hitting the ground. And we're gonna go ahead and place that down. And you can pretty much leave this as is. It can be any label, really. So you might want to just select everything in here in the labels section of the properties panel. I'm not sure why it didn't come like that. That means if it hits the player, if it hits the ground, if it hits another AI, it's gonna output a signal. And what we want is we're going to get a destroyer here, and we're going to output the bumps from our impact sensor into the destroyer, and we're going to output the currently modifying into the destroyer of our into the power input of the destroyer. So basically, if we deal damage to a target, or if we hit a target, we are going to destroy ourselves because, hey, we did our job and we did what we were supposed to do. We went where we went, so let's go ahead and get rid of ourselves. So now we have a bullet and we got a thing to aim at the player with. So go ahead and set up the emitter. So we're going to open up the properties panel of the emitter. We're going to select the bullet using the object to emit, which looks like a crosshair. We're going to do, let's do 20 meters per second to start with. And time between emits, we're going to set that to 0. And we're going to do once. And max emitted at once, 20 is fine. And we'll recycle emitted objects, so that way if we hit 20, we're going to go ahead and reset that one, the first one that we emitted technically. Alright, that seems fine to me. And we're going to go ahead and make an input here. So we're going to get a node from our logic and processing section. And we're going to place that on the left. And this is going to be our fire node. Now, if you want, we can actually make this, I think we're going to make this a continuous emit mode. And we're going to change the time between emits to about half a second. So this way we can just consistently fire when we have a target. Okay. That may not be as intelligent as you want. If you want something a little bit more complex, you could set up a trigger zone, so when the player is in that trigger zone, the AI will fire. And right now, I believe if we set this up properly, we would end up having, if we attach this to the hand and we did the pose and everything, this would like fire at the player like as accurate as we could get it, and that might be a little bit too much. So we're going to end up modifying that in a minute here after we set up everything else. So we want to move the emitter position over to the front of our cube over here, or technically if we get this, we're going to want to turn off this lookout rotator for now. And then we're going to play time, and then pause time. And what that basically does, it puts this cube into the position where we know it's going to be. And then we're going to be able to modify the gun, like the emitter. So what I want to do is actually set this teleporter to match target orientation so we get the correct rotation as well. And I think, is that even in the middle? No, we're gonna move. I want to try to get this as close as possible. So we're gonna move the teleporter gizmo a little bit closer to the position I want it to be in. Okay. And once you have it teleported like this, we're going to pause time. We're going to then go ahead and set up this bullet here to fire out as straight as possible out of this weapon tip. Or gun tip. Because we want this arrow to be in the direction that the gun is firing in. Go ahead and make sure you're firing out of the nozzle of the gun or the barrel, or just in front of it, basically. Oh man, that is really in there, isn't it? Okay, let's move the camera inside of the cube. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and modify the teleporter to not match target orientation. And we're going to go ahead and turn back on our look at rotator. So now, yep, our aim should be correcting to aim at the player. So now that we have our gun set up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to group the gun and the cube as well as the bullet as one object. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach that to our hand. Well, actually, yeah, we don't want to have this grouped because I feel like if we fired bullet, it may move with the player. No, maybe. Okay, well, we'll start with it grouped because that's a lot more convenient for us. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to attach it to our player, or not our player, but our NPC's hand over here. I think we're going to have a right-handed dude. Go ahead and get that in there. Alright, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and get him in his aim pose. Now, it doesn't really have to be perfect. I mean, it depends on what you're doing and what you want the player to see. But as long as it's set up properly, this position doesn't actually matter because we have that aim corrector set up. So as long as it's like approximate, it should be good. Oh man, that does not look right. There we go. It still does not look good at all. There we go. Come on. Come on. I know you can look okay. There we go. That looks okay. That looks fine. And then we're gonna go ahead and scope out, and you can see he aims, but if he walks around, this may not look good. So I want to reduce the arm vigor. I'm gonna... Okay, we don't have the keyframes, which is good. So yeah, so turn off the arm vigor. Raise up the stiffness. Lower lumberingness. Lower... No, we can have sway, I think. No motion sensor. No lean lag. Let's see that. And we're going to get rid of the bounciness in the center of gravity. Go ahead and set that to 0. And now it should look fairly decent. It looks okay. I don't know what the hell he's doing here. That was weird. Okay. Oh, it's probably because we had it set up so he was moving. Yeah. So now this is 10 meters and we have the attack radius at 15, right? Okay, so we're going to set up so he can see the player at 20 meters. So that's our laser scope over here, by the way. That's our sight, basically. Okay, and once we're in our attack radius, we're going to go ahead and start firing. That is not going in the right direction at all, is it? I wonder why. Okay, go ahead and scope in. Let's take a look at that emitter here. That's weird. Okay. Go ahead and move that straight if it wasn't already. Still not aiming properly. Let's see. Because we didn't get it straight enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on grid snap. I'm going to move this cube onto the grid. You can go ahead and pick it up and then press triangle and it'll do that. I'm going to do the same with this arrow here. Hopefully, did that get it working properly? I can't tell. Okay, let's try that now. There we go. Now he's shooting at the player. I'm not sure if he's... Oh, no, he did take damage. There we go. Now we have a simple shooter AI. And you can go ahead and modify this as much as you'd like. There is more complicated stuff you could do. For example, when they're in the attack radius, or if they see the player, you can make them like move left and right by adding in some jerkiness to the movement here. You can also, for example, add in cover systems. Like, that's all very complicated in advance. So I will show off a shooter AI that I have actually made before, and I never finished it, so it doesn't look, I mean, it's not functional. It kinda is, but isn't. So we have this guy here, and he's a lot more advanced than this dude, except for his fall protection and bump protection isn't as good. So we need a couple of things. I had this set up properly before, but I deleted it because I didn't think I was going to show it off. I think basically like all this is for a change here. I think I just had it capitalized. Player, and this is player pause. Alright. And he's gonna run around and go back and forth and shoot. He kind of got stuck on that grate there. Let me move him a bit forward. Like I said, his bump protection isn't as good as our new dude. But he has leaning. And he attempts to find cover. And if we actually put in... We have actual cover here as well. And this is just a marker to tell the AI that we have cover here. And this was set up to work with another FPS thing that I was working on, where if we are detected by the player, I think it's tag sensed, yeah. So there would be like a trigger zone coming out from the player for the aim, and if the cover for the AI was compromised, then it would move out of the cover because it would turn off this and turn back on after like 5 seconds. So if we go ahead and do this, he should get into the cover, and he's going to go ahead and do this. Like I said, he was never finished, so he has some quirks to him still. Some weird quirks, but yeah, that's basically a basic shooter AI. If you want something more complicated, go ahead and write it in the comments. I bet I can make a tutorial for it. But for just a basic shooter, you can go ahead and get this set up. Again, this is pretty important. If you want a less accurate shot, you would probably want to add jitter to the target position, or lag. Lag is pretty easy to do. What you could do for lag is you could set up a signal manipulator here, and you can just do output for smooth rise and output for smooth fall, and that's going to give us a little bit of a signal lag. So if the player is moving around, he's going to have a hard time to shoot at him. I have it turned off, don't I? There we go. So if I go ahead and play, he's going to have a harder time shooting at me than if I was just standing still. And he's not entirely accurate, so if I'm not standing still. So it's really a balance effect. And again, this is just technical right now. Don't really have anything graphically set up. So again, if you want to see any tutorial, really, not just to further expand this AI, but if you want to see any extra tutorial or anything specific like vehicles, because that is going to be my next series, is vehicles like cars, jetpacks, planes, stuff like that. So if you have anything specific you want to see, go ahead and drop that in the comments. Any other questions, go ahead, feel free to put that in the comments. But if you have like big problem you can't solve on your own, there's the Dreams Discord, which I will put a link to in the description, and there's plenty of people in there that can help you. In fact, I'm in there. Don't over spam me though. It would be pretty easy to find me once you're in there. So yeah, I hope you all have a nice rest of your day or night, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye. Bye.